WNBA are not going to be happy with this. That's all I'm going to say. They are absolutely positively not going to be happy with this right here. If you guys don't know, obviously Caitlin Clark is what you call it. She is in the she's going to be in the WNBA as part of a now the NBC, the executive producer for NBC Sports has basically said, yeah, there's no more relevant player, and it's never going to stop. Caitlin Clark could win 10 rings and they're still going to complain about her not winning in high school. Like, and Caitlin Clark is, the most relevant person in basketball. No, that's racist. And I do think that the likelihood of Caitlin Clark, if the WNBA season doesn't happen...
Look at the body language. That pause, that tight smile, that split-second stare off to the side. People keep calling it excitement, but it reads like irritation. Because NBC just crossed a line the WNBA has been trying to keep invisible. Here's the core issue. This was not a casual compliment. This was a hierarchy statement.
Everyone has to be equal. And this is what NBC have said. There is no more iconic figure in basketball, in women's game right now, or the game in general, about Caitlin Clark. In the game in general. That's all I gotta say is that that is...
When an NBC decision maker frames Caitlin Clark as the most iconic figure in basketball, full stop, it does two things at once. It lifts her into a tier the sport rarely hands out in real time, and it quietly tells the audience that the biggest gravitational pull in the game is coming from the league that is usually treated like an also. That is why the reaction matters. NBC is not a random podcast chasing clicks. NBC is a major broadcast partner with incentives, with messaging discipline, with corporate language that usually avoids absolutes. So when they choose an absolute, they are planting a flag. They are saying, this is the face that moves audiences, sells broadcasts, and makes casual fans pay attention. And that is the part that gets uncomfortable for the league, because the WNBA wants Caitlin Clark to be a star inside the system, not a star who makes the system look smaller. They want growth to feel collective, not concentrated. They want every team, every market, every veteran, every storyline to share the spotlight so the league looks durable without any single person holding up the roof.
Alyssa Thomas was the reason why people are watching. And by the way, it's not even, people are like, oh, it was the finals about Alyssa Thomas. No. They literally said, it wasn't just the playoffs, but our regular season broke records as fans went to watch Alyssa Thomas. Like, that is a statement. That is a statement the WNBPA had put out. I have to say, that is a statement that they had put out to say that fans came to watch Alyssa Thomas instead of Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, even if you wanted to say it.
But the outside world does not care about that internal balance. The outside world follows the magnet. So when NBC publicly crowns Caitlin Clark during an NBA-facing announcement, it is not just promoting her. It is recentering the conversation around her in a way the WNBA cannot fully control.
They're not seen as problematic in the league, but now the NBC, the executive producer for NBC Sports, has basically said, yeah, there's no more relevant player, not only in the women's game. And this should be the biggest duh for the WNBA, and the biggest W, that they have basically just said that a player in their league is now, in fact, the most iconic figure in basketball. This is on an NBA post.
And once that happens, every decision starts looking different. Every quote gets interpreted differently, and every reaction becomes a tell. He is not wrong about the pattern. The WNBA spent the entire 2024 season trying to steer the conversation away from the idea that one player is driving the league's momentum. Every time the spotlight narrowed, the messaging widened. Every time the numbers pointed in one direction, the public framing tried to spread it across the whole ecosystem.
But at the end of the day, it's what you call it. It's an obvious statement, but they're not going to be happy. You just know it. Like, people are not going to be happy, basically, with, instead of where people should be happy being like, oh my God, people are actually saying that about a woman.
You could feel that strategy in the way the league communicated after the postseason. Instead of feeding the obvious storyline, The official messaging elevated other names and other explanations, as if the league was insisting that attendance spikes and attention surges were about the product as a whole, not the phenomenon at the center of it. The subtext was clear. Do not let the audience believe this is a one-person economy. And that is what makes NBC's comment such a problem for them, because NBC is not a debate show chasing a viral clip. It is a broadcast partner with real money on the line, real research teams, and real incentive to speak carefully. When someone at that level makes a blunt declaration on an NBA-facing platform, it is not fandom. It is positioning. It is a signal to advertisers, sponsors, and casual viewers about where the attention actually lives. That is the part people miss. Networks do not talk like this unless the internal metrics give them confidence. They have the ratings breakdowns by game window, the minute-by-minute trends, the streaming carryover, the social engagement curves, and the conversion data that answers one question better than any argument ever could. Who makes people show up? So when NBC frames Caitlin Clark as the single most relevant figure in professional basketball, they are not trying to be provocative. They are making a business statement, the kind that makes executives nod in meetings, the kind that shapes how marketing budgets get allocated and how broadcast promos get cut. And the tone matters too. There is no hedging, no careful phrasing, no shared spotlight language. It is definitive, confident, and public, which tells you they believe the numbers protect them. That is why the WNBA's messaging strategy collides headfirst with NBC's reality check. Because once a partner says it out loud, the league cannot unring it. Here is the disconnect that keeps tripping people up. In almost any other sports league, a statement like this becomes a victory lap. If a major broadcast partner told the world that one player was the most iconic figure in the entire sport, the league would not hesitate. They would package it, amplify it, and build weeks of promotional momentum around it. They would flood every commercial break with that face, push that jersey, and make sure casual fans knew exactly who the entry point is. That is how the business usually works. But with the WNBA, the instinct has been different. The league has treated Caitlin Clark's star power like something to manage, not something to crown. Not because they do not understand that it helps them, but because they want to control how it helps them.
And it's never going to stop. Caitlin Clark could win 10 rings and they're still going to complain about her not winning in high school. Like, I just mean it where it's like, these people, none of this is relevant to anything. Like, it is funny in terms of the relevancy. Like, the players have been offered amounts of money that they dreamed of getting. And are calling it slaps in the face. They're getting the coverage that they've always wanted to get. And
they want the benefit without the optics of dependence. They want the surge in attention without the perception that the league's value is anchored to one name. And that is the tension sitting under everything. The WNBA has long operated with a culture that emphasizes parity, respect, and shared recognition. The idea is that the product is the product, and the league should not be reduced to a single personality. In a locker room sense, that mindset is understandable. In a brand sense, it is a risky bet, because fans do not fall in love with philosophies. They fall in love with stories, rivalries, and faces. Stars are how the casual audience learns the league. Networks understand this because networks live and die by attention. Sponsors understand it because sponsors pay for association with recognizable people. A corporate partner is not buying balance. They are buying reach. They are buying cultural presence. They are buying the ability to put a person on a billboard and have strangers instantly know who it is. So when NBC speaks in that blunt top-of-the-mountain language, it is not disrespecting the rest of the league. It is doing what broadcasters do. It is identifying the clearest marketing engine and turning it into a headline. The WNBA's discomfort is not really about whether Caitlin Clark is a star. It is about what happens if everyone agrees she is the main star. Because once that becomes the accepted reality, every other decision gets judged through that lens. Every schedule choice, every TV window, every ad campaign, every quote. And the league loses the ability to pretend the attention is evenly distributed. That is the collision point. NBC is speaking the language of business, while the WNBA is trying to speak the language of principle. That whole Sheryl Swoopes situation is the cleanest example of what is really going on, because it was never just about a misquote. It was about how quickly the conversation shifted away from the substance and toward protecting the posture. Here is what happened in plain terms. A media report circulated that Sheryl Swoopes had framed Katie Lou Samuelson as more important to the Indiana Fever than Caitlin Clark. Then Sheryl Swoopes pushed back and clarified that her point was not more important, but equally important.
The Fever are better without Caitlin Clark is one that was used by commentators. Like, to be fair, at least no one's gone full Sheryl Swoopes. The fact Elle Duncan apologizing to Sheryl Swoopes is still one of the craziest things. So basically, Elle Duncan said that Sheryl Swoopes said Katie Lou Samuelson was more important to the Fever than Caitlin Clark, and that's what Elle Duncan reported.
The reporter apologized for the wording, and what should have followed was a simple, obvious question. How does anyone land on equal in the first place? But that is not where the energy went. The energy went toward defending Sheryl Swoopes, defending the intent, defending the principle of the take, and treating the backlash as if it was irrational. The slight difference between more and equal became the entire headline, while the underlying idea stayed intact and largely unchallenged. And that is what reveals the environment. Because to argue that Caitlin Clark and Katie Lou Samuelson carried the same value for Indiana is not just a mild disagreement. It is a distortion of what was happening on the court. Samuelson had a limited role and limited production. Caitlin Clark was driving the offense, generating points, creating shots for others, and carrying the kind of workload that reshapes a team's identity.
Swoopes is actually, in fact, they're at fault, and that, you know, Sheryl Swoopes didn't say, like, basically Sheryl Swoopes can do no wrong when she slightly misquoted. She was a whole apology and then went to bat for Sheryl Swoopes when the sentiment of why the Sheryl Swoopes statement was crazy, it was true. That she was saying nonsense shit about Caitlin Clark.
Those are not comparable responsibilities. Yet in this media ecosystem, pushing back on equal was treated like you were doing something wrong. Like acknowledging the obvious was the real offense, not the claim itself. That is the pattern. The league's discourse has been so committed to avoiding a single-star narrative that it starts producing arguments that do not match reality. It rewards framing over facts. It protects the idea of balance even when the numbers are screaming that one player is the engine. And once you understand that, NBC's statement lands differently. NBC just walked into a space where saying the quiet part out loud triggers defenses. Not because the statement is inaccurate, but because it threatens the preferred storyline. The preferred storyline says the league is rising as a collective. NBC's statement says one person is pulling the whole sport into new rooms. That is why people reacted the way they did. Because NBC did not just praise Caitlin Clark. NBC challenged the social contract around how you are allowed to talk about her. Now take it one step further, because the scary part is this is no longer a debate topic headline. The labor situation is real, and it is already affecting how the league operates. The players opted out. The old deal expired on October 31st, 2025, and as of early 2026, there still is not a new agreement in place. That is why people keep whispering the word nobody wants to say out loud, lockout. And if negotiations keep dragging, the season that sits in the crosshairs is the next one on the calendar, with the league's 30th season scheduled to begin on May 8th. A delayed start is one thing. A season in limbo is another. Either way, it creates a brutal reality for most players. They go overseas, they piece together income, they keep their bodies sharp, and they hope the spotlight is still there when they come back. But for Caitlin Clark, the risk is different. Her value is not just what she does between the lines. It is the fact that she is happening in real time, in American arenas, in primetime windows, inside the mainstream sports conversation. Remove that for months, and you do not just pause a season, you pause momentum.
I don't know what, I actually don't know what's going to happen if the WNBA season doesn't happen. I mean that. I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know what they're going to do, because if the W season doesn't happen,
And momentum is the most fragile currency in sports. Be honest about how this works. Overseas leagues have featured elite talent for years, and most casual American fans still did not follow week to week. The time zones are brutal, the access is inconsistent, and the cultural conversation does not travel cleanly across oceans. The player might still be great, but the moment gets quieter. That is why NBC's behavior makes sense. They are not only celebrating Caitlin Clark, they are hedging against uncertainty. If the WNBA calendar gets shaky, NBC still wants a way to keep her visible, keep her in front of the audience, keep her attached to a weekly sports routine. They have already invested in her as a ratings driver, and they are positioning her as a pillar of their basketball identity, not a temporary guest star. So when people ask why that executive statement hit so hard, this is part of the answer. It was not just praise, it was insurance. If the WNBA shuts down play, NBC still has Caitlin Clark on its airwaves, talking basketball, breaking down games, staying visible. That is the hedge. They keep her attached to the weekly sports routine, they keep the audience relationship warm, and they keep the story alive even if the league calendar goes dark. That is smart business. But it also exposes the real tension underneath all of this, because it suggests NBC sees her more clearly as an individual asset than the league she plays in is willing to admit. The controversy is not the praise, the controversy is the discomfort. It is the feeling that the league wants to manage her stardom instead of maximizing it, as if acknowledging a singular gravity automatically diminishes everyone else. But that is not how sports brands are built. In the NBA, entire eras were defined by singular stars, and the ecosystem benefited from that spotlight. Michael Jordan became the league's global face, and the league grew. Kobe Bryant became a cultural symbol, and the league grew. LeBron James carried the conversation for 2 decades, and the league grew. Stephen Curry changed the sport's style and reach, and the league grew. Role players did not need equal billing for everyone to benefit from the bigger stage. The NFL operates the same way. Quarterbacks become the face. Patrick Mahomes is everywhere because he moves attention, and attention moves money. That is the reality the WNBA is wrestling with. They have a player that a major broadcast partner is willing to center as the face of the entire sport, and instead of leaning into it, they keep trying to dilute it. This is the kind of star power leagues spend decades praying for, and instead of building an entire era around it, the WNBA keeps hesitating like it is trying to find a way to acknowledge reality without upsetting anyone. That approach sounds noble, but it is not how you hold a cultural moment. Moments do not wait for perfect messaging. You cannot run 2 models at the same time. You cannot be the league that insists the spotlight must be evenly distributed and also be the league that knows the spotlight is what brings new fans through the door. At some point, you have to choose a primary strategy because the market will choose for you. What makes NBC's statement even heavier is where it was said. This was not framed as, "She is the biggest thing in the WNBA." It was framed on an NBA platform inside NBA coverage, in a context that automatically places Caitlin Clark in the same mental tier as the biggest names the sport has produced. It puts her in the same room as LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then it implies she is the one pulling the strongest attention right now. That is not a women's sports sympathy statement. That is not a nice thing to say. That is a cold business assessment about who moves the needle with viewers, who drives engagement, and who can be leveraged as a tentpole for programming. And the WNBA should be celebrating it loudly, consistently, and strategically. They should be amplifying it and coordinating with NBC to squeeze every ounce of value out of this open window. More national visibility, more mainstream crossover, more consistent storytelling, more moments that make casual fans feel like they are missing something if they are not tuned in. Instead, the instinct often feels like caution, like internal balancing, like the fear of being seen as too dependent on one person. But while the league tries to thread that needle, the window does not stay open forever. Casual attention is a temporary gift. People are curious right now. They are listening right now. They are sampling the product right now. And that brings the league to the question it cannot avoid much longer. Are you going to build around the star you have, or are you going to keep trying to pretend the moment belongs to everyone equally while the moment quietly moves on? So here's the uncomfortable choice sitting in front of the league. Do they want to be morally consistent about equality, or do they want to win the attention economy? Because right now, the league keeps acting like those two goals are in direct conflict, and it is choosing the safer stance even when it costs them momentum. NBC just handed them a rare gift. This is not a random compliment. This is a mainstream partner telling the world on an NBA-facing platform that the biggest draw in basketball right now is a WNBA player. The instinctive response from a growth-minded league would be simple: appreciate it, amplify it, build on it, not retreat into defensiveness, not pivot into reminders that everyone deserves recognition, not scramble to soften the edges so nobody feels slighted. You can respect the rest of the league and still understand what the market is telling you. Both things can be true at the same time, but only one of them actually builds a durable business model. You do not create long-term stability by insisting every player is perceived the same. You create it by using a transcendent figure as an entry point, then expanding what fans care about once they are inside the arena. That is how you turn a moment into a movement. So I will leave it with this. Is NBC right to label Caitlin Clark the most iconic figure in basketball right now, based on cultural impact, attention, and mainstream pull? Or does that framing disrespect NBA stars and minimize other WNBA players who have been building the league for years? And the bigger question, should the WNBA lean into having a once-in-a-generation star and treat it like a strategic advantage? Or keep prioritizing an equality-first posture, even if it caps their ceiling? Because this is not really an argument about whether Caitlin Clark is great. Everyone can see that. This is an argument about whether the WNBA is willing to accept what the marketplace is already saying out loud. NBC did not create the moment. They just confirmed it publicly in the most unforgiving arena possible, the NBA conversation, where compliments are not handed out unless the numbers justify the risk. The league can treat that as a threat, or it can treat it as leverage. If you lean into it, you do not erase anyone else. You use the spotlight to build new stars, bigger rivalries, better storylines, and more money for everyone. You turn first-time viewers into repeat viewers. You build habits, you build tradition, you build stability. That is how sports grow. Not by pretending gravity does not exist, but by using gravity to pull the whole league forward. But if you keep resisting it, if you keep trying to sand down the edges and redistribute attention like it is a resource you can ration, you risk missing the simplest truth in modern sports. Fans do not follow principles. Fans follow moments. And right now, the moment is open. The door is open. The casual audience is finally looking in. The only question is whether the WNBA walks through that door and owns the era, or whether it keeps hesitating until the world moves on to the next shiny thing. So pay attention to what happens next. Not the statements, not the speeches, the choices, the scheduling, the marketing, the partnerships, the way they handle the star they were lucky enough to be given. Because those decisions will tell you whether the league is ready to be successful, or whether it would rather be comfortable. If you want the real breakdowns as this unfolds, the behind-the-scenes angles, the power dynamics, and the moves nobody is saying out loud, stay locked in with Courtside Leaks. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.